Welcome to episode 336 of Hot Media with Bob Mann. Every week on this program, we talk about the hottest content and hottest controversies in the media. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I got a great invitation to a glamorous movie premiere. It was not in Manhattan, it was in the Bronx. And it was thrilling because we only had a couple of days' notice, and we found out that we were going to see the first two episodes of the ESPN documentary series, The Captain. And as a Yankee season ticket holder, I will say the great Derek Jeter is the subject matter. And the producer is there right on your screen for those of you seeing the video version of this on YouTube, and that is Gabe Honig. Gabe is the producer and, of course, has been in media for many years. And Gabe, thank you for taking the time here to be on Hot Media.
Of course, Bob. Thanks so much. Looking forward to the conversation.
Let me just ask you, Gabe, in terms of the subject matter, why Derek Jeter?
I think that, there's a few reasons. One is the guy, played for 20 years in New York, won more than any other player in his generation, and nobody really knew much about him. And obviously that was by design. Derek was notoriously private, and he was finally ready to open up and tell his side of the story. I also think there's a large argument to be made that Derek is still the face of baseball, that nobody has been as popular or as famous as he was in the 90s, 2000s, and into 2014, as he was at that time. I don't think anyone has kind of usurped him as the face of the game. And, we went into this. Our director, Randy Wilkins, had this thesis statement that Derek Jeter is an American cultural icon. And we went about to kind of investigate that. I think that's what the 7-part series does.
I mentioned this to you in an email. I got this invitation as a Yankee season ticket holder. And the Yankees are notoriously a self-promoting organization, as is almost every organization on the planet, but they're very concerned about their brand, their greatness, their tradition, their loyalty. But this is a documentary, and for a documentary to be good, it has to be honest, it has to be real. I was a little surprised to see this showing in Yankee Stadium because I don't think, this is just my interpretation of these first two episodes, that the Yankee management, including the ownership of George Steinbrenner and the longtime and still current general manager, Brian Cashman, I don't think they came off that well. How did the Yankees react to this, and how did you get this shown in Yankee Stadium?
Well, let me start with how it got shown in Yankee Stadium. The Yankees, were very generous to offer up their stadium. They worked well with ESPN. It was a phenomenal event. They did see and have seen all the episodes. I think that there's a perception of the Yankees as being this monolith, but they are run by human beings. And, I think that we, during the process of making the film, we reached out to the Yankees to get their perspective, to have them sit down for interviews. Hal Steinbrenner was incredibly generous with his time, meeting with us in Tampa for 2 hours. Brian Cashman sat with us for 4 hours. And I think that, being fair and trying to get both sides of the story is obviously the goal of any documentary. We're not making a propaganda film here. And I think by including the Yankees' perspective on these things, I think that it helps. There are two sides to every story. As you saw in episode 2, Brian Cashman didn't think that it was being unfair, but he also acknowledged that Derek meant so much to the Yankees, that it's really just a difference of value and worth, dollars and cents. The other thing is that, and we get into it a little later, but Derek and George had a phenomenal relationship, George Steinbrenner. And Derek has had nothing but compliments for the Steinbrenner family, and I think they feel the same. I know they feel the same way about Derek. Did Derek and Brian Cashman have some differences? Absolutely. I think those are very public and known. Again, a little later in the series, we get into it, especially during the 2010 contract negotiations with Derek and the team. Those tensions are real. And yeah, we explore them. But again, by giving both sides of the story, I think it makes it a little easier for everybody to allow it to be out there in the public.
I mentioned that a documentary has to be honest and it has to be real. We've seen documentaries for years, going back to the days of motion pictures and even in broadcast journalism, Edward R. Murrow and Harvest of Shame, things of that nature. But this documentary series in sports is a genre that seems to be red hot, fairly new. The Last Dance was a phenomenon, even with non-sports fans. My wife, it's taken so long to get her into baseball and the Yankees, and the whole idea of the Chicago Bulls was off the charts. She was so fascinated by the stories of the lives of the people. What is it about this genre, and how big is this genre becoming, the sports documentary series?
Yeah, I think it's obviously very huge, and being in my position, that's been fantastic. It's been good for business. Um, why does it transcend just sports? I think that like sports in general just tap into emotions. You get the feels. I saw that a lot on Twitter last night. Yankee fans, non-Yankee fans would watch it and get the feels, quote unquote. The nostalgia factor also plays into it. It's a trip down memory lane for a certain demographic and generation. It's just far enough away to have forgotten some of this stuff and just be reminded and be back in that moment. Not long enough, not far enough away that people don't remember it and can't tell stories about it with clarity, and not close enough that like you just don't have any perspective on it and you're just basically reliving clips. But yeah, it's a huge genre. I think though that it only really works with people who did transcend the sport. And I think that obviously Michael Jordan transcended the sport. Nike, McDonald's, like you didn't have to like basketball to know the name Michael Jordan. And I think Derek Jeter is right there behind him.
When you talk a little bit about the producer's job, when you sat down and interviewed Jeter, was that a single sit down? Were those multiple sit down? Don't forget, I've only seen 2 episodes. We're recording on July 22nd, and the rest of the country is still yet to see a number of these episodes premiering weekly on ESPN. How did you actually do the interviews? Take us a little bit behind the scenes, since this is a media oriented podcast.
Sure. So, we all follow the lead of our director, Randy Wilkins, an incredibly talented, guy who I honestly did not know before I interviewed for the job. I met up with him and the other producer on the series, Alex Cirillo. We hit it off in the interview, and as a lifelong Yankee fan, this was a dream opportunity for me. That fandom for me helped me with like I didn't have to really go do all the research. I lived it. I read all the books after starting the project, and was watching clips and all that. So it wasn't like I just was able to pick my feet up. So really all starts with Randy, the director, and he talked through how he saw the episodes kind of breaking out. We discussed with our larger team, once we put that together, the best interviews. We ended up with 90 interviews. We sat down with Derek 4 times for about 25, 30 hours of total time in the chair. Those 4 interviews were spread out over, we started with first one was in August, then did another one in the fall, another one right around the holidays, Christmas time and New Year, and then a final one in April after he left the Marlins. The process is the same with, anybody who's putting together an article or even a podcast. You start with your research. You want to get all the perspectives. In crafting the questions, Randy really hit home that he did not want questions to be leading. He didn't want a point of view. He wanted people to speak their truth. And to Randy's credit, he did. He had, he took the interview subjects aside and said, guys, like, I'm not looking for anything here. I'm just going to ask you questions. Tell us your perspective. And I think that's why I think the film and the series is so great. And I do think it is great, is that it does allow people to give all perspectives of Derek. And Derek, to his credit, didn't tell us to take anything out that was negative about him. And I think that by having other people's perspectives, when we sat down with Derek a second, a third, and a fourth time, that kind of, you know, feeding him lines or knowing insight that other people had, you know, kind of allowed Derek to be probably a little more open than, you know, than he was, or, you know, during his career.
You touched on something I was going to ask you anyway. Did Derek have any editorial control or input in this agreement? As you mentioned at the very top of the conversation, he is an extremely private person. It's kind of amazing something like this could be done at all. But did he have any editorial control or veto power?
I, I would not say he had editorial control. Did Derek screen cuts? Yes, absolutely. Was he looking for accuracy, and you know, making sure that things were taking the right context? Yes. But no, at no point did we ever feel that Derek was not allowing Randy to tell the story that he and we wanted to tell.
I've only seen the first two. I understand that there was a premiere right after the All-Star game. How many episodes, as we record on July 22nd, has the public seen?
Two. They've
Just
seen the
these
first two.
two. Okay. So
Yeah.
this lets me just ask this for the entire audience, which is what can we expect coming down the road? For example, I see a lot of teasers about the A-Rod relationship and sound bites from A-Rod, which seem pretty exciting and provocative, including one, and forgive me, Gabe, for paraphrasing here, in which he said, A-Rod says, I walked up to Derek and I said, "Are we okay?" And he goes, "I guess something along those lines." What are we going to be looking for in the final five?
Well, so we left off in episode two that the Yankees are on top of the world, best team in baseball, in history, baseball, 98, 125 and 50. You know, they had won 2 championships in 3 years. They're about to go and win the next 2 World Series, including a Subway Series against the Mets. That all happens in episode three, as does you know, we set it up in episode two that Derek and Alex Rodriguez are friends, and there are some cracks in that relationship. The relationship is, you know, forever severed, or, you know, changed forever. I shouldn't say severed, changed forever, when Alex Rodriguez gives a couple of interviews in 2000, you know, late 2000 and early 2001, which we get into in detail at the end of episode three. Episode four is, you know, 2001. You know, we delve a little bit into the tragedy of 9/11, and that episode goes all the way through Alex's trade to the Yankees in '04. Episode five, you may want to have me back on after that one airs. That one is about Derek's relationship with the media, the New York media. And then episode six is kind of the end of Derek's career with the Yankees, which trails into episode seven, and which gets into his ownership with the Marlins and his family. And Hannah Jeter makes her appearance in episode six and seven, and we get into Derek, the family man, and kind of an epilogue of his career.
When I spoke with you about the genre of the sports documentary series, I said that it's about so much more than sports, and it can get people who don't care at all about sports interested and excited. The documentary deals with some very serious issues, at least in episode one, when you're going into his childhood, about the struggles that the Jeters faced in terms of a biracial marriage. Talk about some of the things that are off the field, away from the Yankees, away from baseball, that are in this series.
I think one of the biggest surprises for me, and it shouldn't have been a surprise for me, but it was how much Derek's biracial identity really affected his outlook and his worldview, and I think really affected his, you know, he says it himself, his trust issues, and how he dealt with playing in New York for 20 years. That is a recurring theme. You know, episode two is the rise of the star. In episode three, like we kind of delve into how Derek deals with being a star, and some of that is these trust issues. And I think like the Derek and Alex relationship is really it's a classic tale. And I think that, you know, everybody in their life has had a relationship that is complicated, And I really think that it transcends just baseball, the relationship that Derek and Alex have. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, episode 5 again deals with a lot of race in baseball and deals with kind of this idea of celebrity and media. You know, the infamous gift basket story does get dealt with in episode 5, and then episode 6 and 7. You know, Derek the family man, Derek the husband. You know, his wife Hannah Jeter was incredibly honest and forthright, and you know, and during her interview, and shared with us a lot of things that I think need to be talked about right now, and we deal with those in episode 7.
Just two more quick questions, Gabe.
Sure.
The first, what is your favorite Jeter moment? Before you became the producer of this documentary series, what was it the catch with the bloody face? Was it the 3,000th home run? Was it Mr. November? Which one was it before this all began?
I will give you two. I was blessed to be in Shea Stadium in Game 4 with one of my my dearest and oldest friends in the stands. We were in college at the time; we were college roommates, and his dad got us tickets, and we were in the upper deck. Game 4 of the 2000 World Series in Shea Stadium when Derek led off that game with a home run and kind of just ended the series right there. That's definitely by far my personal favorite. A very, very close second is Derek's final hit. Not the one in Yankee Stadium, which is the one that the documentary deals with, but his dribbler up the line in Fenway in at the end of the 2014 season. And the reason why that is my favorite is that is my son, who's 12. That is his first memory of professional baseball. And he wears number 2. Before I got this job, he wore number 2 in Little League. He's got Derek Jeter posters in his room because that's the first memory he has. And what was incredibly cool was getting to meet Derek's parents and Derek's dad, Dr. Jeter. And I told him about that. And then, you know, he told us that that's the thing that gets him the most is when he sees parents who put their kids in number 2 jerseys. That means the world to him. And that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I was at that moment at Shea Stadium. That was the days of old-time scalper tickets, guys, you know, in little dark offices long before StubHub. And okay, you know, I had my Yankee Stadium games, but that is so iconic. And as a television producer, you're really going to relate to the fact that there are so many pieces of video of that with cameras going off because it's the first pitch. It just coincidentally, it seems so staged.
Yeah.
All the photos are going while he cracks that shot.
I am one of those flash bulbs. I am sitting in the left field upper deck, but you're right around third base. And every time that shot comes up in the film, I say to the editor or Randy or Alex, I'm like, that flash bulb's mine.
That's great.
I have the picture up here in my office. You know, yeah, that was an all-time moment.
Okay, now being the producer, what do you know about Derek Jeter? What have you found out about Derek Jeter, which may be new to you because you had to look at all this raw footage before the edits? You had to probably even be there while the interviews were being shot. What did you find out that surprised you or that you didn't already know?
Well, I'm going to steal an answer that Randy Wilkins has been giving in his interviews because it is shocking. Derek Jeter curses. He curses.
I so wanted to ask you that because now I assume ESPN is bleeping these curses.
They are, but they are unbleeped and uncensored.
They're unbleeped in Yankee Stadium. And I'm sitting in Yankee Stadium watching Derek Jeter on a gigantic screen drop a load of F-bombs. And I'm like, this is really cool. I have no problem with colorful language. So, you know, and like when he walks into, I have to be careful with Apple Podcasts. They want to know if my episode is clean. So, you know, but what he said to David Wells when David Wells, you know, did the hands in the air to a lazy outfield play. But I was so shocked by that. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, Randy had talked to Derek and met Derek before, a couple times before Derek sat down for the first interview, and he sort of said, he's like, it's shocking. He's like, when this guy drops an F bomb or an S bomb, like you're just like, what? And yeah, I mean, look, I feel like I lived with Derek, and because I was so into sports and storytelling, like during Derek's career, I was obsessed with watching the pre and post game shows. So as I've said many times during this project, I'm like, for 20 years, for 8 months a year, I saw Derek speak probably 15, 20 minutes a day for 8 months. Never came close to being even annoyed at a reporter, which is a remarkable feat. And we do get into in episode 5 of like how and why he did that. But like, yeah, he wasn't cursing. And then yeah, he shows up for his first interview and sits down in the green room, and I mean the guy is just the most relaxed, confident person you can imagine. And yeah, we're just chatting, and then all of a sudden there's a curse. Like, oh, okay. And then yeah, during the interview he starts cursing, and yeah, and you're just like, it's surprising, but it shouldn't have been, because he's just a person. He is a human being. And he's a really cool and good guy. Like it's not an act when he gets in front of the cameras, but he does understand the responsibility he has. And I think that his being so reserved and not letting that side out was A, to protect himself, and B, to, as a role model, he didn't want to be, saying the wrong thing.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here on Hot Media. I know that you're extremely busy. You're a phenomenal guest. And I hope that you will join us again here on the program, because of the fact that
Absolutely.
I just love everything that you had to say, and I love this series. And I know the world knows this already, but when will the subsequent episodes air on ESPN so they can watch or set their DVRs?
Sure. So the next 2 episodes drop on Thursday, the 28th of July, episodes 3 and 4. Then on August 4th, episodes 5 and 6, and then episode 7 is all by itself on August 11th, and then it's also available, like I said, on ESPN Plus if you want to see the uncensored version. Yeah, the first 2 are available now. And yeah, everybody should be tuning in if you're a Yankee fan, not a Yankee fan. Um, you know, Derek, and Derek's story is really a story of all of us. I'd find it hard pressed to not have somebody take a look at Derek's story and not find something that they can relate to themselves, even though he's a iconic superstar athlete.
It's a great story. It's very well done. Congratulations. I hope
Thank
that
you.
you take home a boatload of Emmys on this. And thank you for taking the time to be with us. Gabe Honig, who is the producer of The Captain on ESPN, right here on this episode of Hot Media with Bob Mann.
Thank you so much, Bob. And yeah, hope to talk to you in the next couple weeks.